Tonight, we're diving into a major trade development that's making headlines across North America and beyond. Trade is the lifeblood of modern economies, connecting countries, businesses, and consumers in a vast web of exchange. But behind the scenes, a set of powerful tools shapes how goods move across borders, who benefits, and who pays the price. Understanding these tools is key to making sense of the news and the impact on our daily lives. Tonight's story centers on a development affecting millions in the U.S. and Canada, two nations whose economies are deeply intertwined. Every day, thousands of trucks, trains, and ships carry everything from cars and electronics to food and clothing across the border. This constant flow of goods supports jobs, keeps store shelves stocked, and helps set the prices we all pay. But what happens when governments decide to intervene in this flow? One of the most important, and sometimes controversial tools at their disposal is the tariff. A tariff is essentially a tax placed on imported goods. When a product crosses a border, the government can require the importer to pay an extra fee, which is then added to the cost of the item. For example, if a Canadian company wants to sell its products in the U.S., a tariff can make those products more expensive for American consumers. This means that shoppers might see higher prices on store shelves, and businesses that rely on imported parts or materials could face increased costs as well. Tariffs aren't new. They've been used for centuries by governments around the world. Historically, tariffs serve two main purposes: protecting domestic industries from foreign competition and generating revenue for the government. In the early days of the United States, for instance, tariffs were a major source of federal income, helping to fund public projects and build the nation's infrastructure. But tariffs are more than just a way to raise money. They're also a powerful bargaining chip in international relations. When countries negotiate trade deals, tariffs can be used as leverage to encourage partners to open their markets, change regulations, or address unfair practices. Sometimes the mere threat of a tariff is enough to bring countries to the negotiating table. However, tariffs come with significant downsides. When tariffs are imposed, the extra costs are often passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. This can make everyday goods more expensive, from groceries to electronics. Small businesses in particular may struggle to absorb these costs, which can lead to layoffs or even closures. In some cases, consumers and business owners have taken to the streets to protest rising prices and shrinking choices. The story doesn't end there. When one country imposes tariffs, its trading partners often respond in kind, leading to a cycle of retaliation. For instance, if the U.S. places tariffs on Canadian goods, Canada might respond by taxing American products. This tit-for-tat escalation can quickly spiral into a trade war, raising tensions and disrupting global supply chains. The consequences of these actions ripple through the economy, affecting everything from stock markets to job security. That's why announcements about tariffs and trade policy are so closely watched by businesses, investors, and everyday people alike. As we continue to follow this developing story, understanding the basics of trade tools like tariffs will help us all make sense of the headlines and the real-world impact on our wallets and communities. The buzz in Washington and across North America is all about President Trump's latest announcement, a bold and controversial move that has sent shockwaves through both political and business circles. At the heart of the matter is a proposed 35% tariff on Canadian imports, a figure that immediately grabbed headlines and sparked heated debates on both sides of the border. This isn't just a minor adjustment, it's a sweeping measure that could reshape the economic relationship between the United States and its northern neighbor. For Canadian companies, especially those whose livelihoods depend on access to the vast U.S. market, this steep tariff is nothing short of a game changer. Manufacturers, farmers, and exporters are all bracing for the potential impact, knowing that such a significant increase in costs could threaten jobs, profits, and even the survival of some businesses. Yet there's a twist. The implementation of the tariff isn't immediate. Instead, there's a pause, a delay that leaves everyone in a state of limbo. This waiting period injects a sense of uncertainty into the market, as companies and investors try to predict what will happen next and how best to prepare. The pause is more than just a bureaucratic formality, it's a calculated move, a warning shot and a negotiation tactic rolled into one. By holding off on immediate enforcement, the U.S. administration is signaling to Canada that there's still time to come to the table, to negotiate, and perhaps to avoid the full brunt of the tariff through compromise or new agreements. For businesses on both sides of the border, this pause is a mixed blessing. On one hand, it offers a temporary reprieve, a chance to adjust, strategize, and hope for a diplomatic breakthrough. On the other, it complicates long-term planning, as companies are forced to weigh the risks and make tough decisions without knowing what the future holds. The looming threat of the tariff is already having real-world effects. Investment decisions are being put on hold, hiring plans are delayed, and some companies are even considering shifting operations to hedge against possible losses. As everyone waits for the next move, the uncertainty itself becomes a powerful force, shaping the economic landscape in ways that may last long after the final decision is made. The 35% tariff doesn't apply to all Canadian goods. Key exemptions include products under the USMCA, like cars and many agricultural goods. This limits the tariff's immediate impact, targeting specific industries instead. The strategy is to pressure Canadian industries without disrupting the entire trade framework. For consumers, some Canadian products may see price hikes, but core trade remains intact. The Trump administration's tariff strategy is rooted in a desire to rebalance global trade and assert American negotiating power. At its core, this approach is about more than just imposing taxes on imported goods. It's a calculated move to address what the administration sees as long-standing trade imbalances that have disadvantaged American workers and industries. By leveraging tariffs, the U.S. aims to send a clear message to trading partners: the status quo is no longer acceptable, and significant changes are expected. Tariffs are designed to make imported goods more expensive, thereby encouraging consumers and businesses to buy American-made products. This, in theory, should help reduce the trade deficit by boosting domestic production and supporting local jobs. The administration believes that a strong manufacturing sector is vital for national security and economic independence, and tariffs are seen as a tool to revitalize these industries. Beyond economic goals, tariffs are also used as leverage in international negotiations. By threatening or imposing tariffs, the U.S. seeks to bring other countries to the table and push for more favorable trade agreements. This tactic is intended to level the playing field, ensuring that American businesses face fair competition abroad. The delay in imposing tariffs on Canadian goods is a prime example of this strategy in action. By holding off, the administration increases pressure on Canada to make concessions during trade negotiations, using the threat of tariffs as a bargaining chip to secure better terms for the U.S. This approach is part of a broader push for reciprocal trade, where the U.S. seeks to ensure that its trading partners offer the same level of market access and fairness that American companies provide. The administration argues that only through tough negotiations and assertive policies can true fairness in global trade be achieved. While economists and policymakers continue to debate the long-term effectiveness and potential risks of this strategy, the Trump administration remains steadfast in its commitment to reshaping the global trade landscape. For supporters, it's a bold move to protect American interests. For critics, it's a gamble with uncertain consequences. Either way, the world is watching closely as the U.S. pursues a new path in international trade. Tariffs impact everyday life, often seen in price hikes at the register. Companies importing taxed goods pass costs to consumers, affecting prices of items like maple syrup. Tariffs can ripple through the economy, raising costs in sectors like housing. While intended to protect jobs, tariffs can also lead to layoffs in affected industries. Retaliation from other countries can further impact U.S. exports, complicating the job market. The Canada tariff is part of a broader global strategy. Similar pressures are applied to other trading partners like Mexico and India. The U.S. uses tariffs to advance foreign policy goals, linking economic penalties to geopolitical issues. This strategy affects global supply chains and international relations, creating widespread uncertainty. The U.S. tariff strategy sparks global concern, with leaders criticizing protectionist measures. Businesses face uncertainty, affecting forecasts and investment decisions. Industries warn of potential job losses and financial risks due to tariffs. The policy incentivizes companies to invest in U.S. manufacturing but creates a volatile environment. The delayed 35% tariff on Canada leaves U.S. Canada trade in limbo. Intense negotiations are expected to prevent the tariffs from taking effect. Businesses must prepare for potential changes, affecting supply chains and pricing strategies. The situation could reshape U.S.-Canada relations, prompting Canada to diversify trade ties. The outcome remains uncertain, with potential for both cooperation and confrontation.